We've got a busy schedule tonight. It's Tuesday, so I'm going to show you how I make sweet potato and chickpea curry. Now, keep in mind, I'm not an Indian person or of Indian descent, so my idea of curry might be a little different than yours, but I do the best I can for my family. We are going to start. I've got 2 sweet potatoes left over in the fridge, so I'm going to peel those and we'll just chit chat like we always do. You might notice I have over here my trust fund. And I've indicated in the past that I don't come from money. I come from rednecks, and I own that. So the trust fund is kind of a little joke I started with my children and husband. Seems like anytime you have an intimate relationship with someone, you're all living in the same house, there's a tendency to maybe let each other down sometimes. And I take it personally. I carry these things with me. And I wanted to find a way to be more forgiving um, and make a point with my children and husband that it's really important that we honor our commitments and that we can trust each other. And we've had various occasions where people had good intentions, that they're not bad people, they just made mistakes. And for example, I might be headed to a school board meeting and ask somebody to take the casserole out of the refrigerator at 4 o'clock and put it in the oven at 350 for an hour. So it'll be ready for dinner when we get home. And the person doesn't do that. So I get home and there's a semi-frozen raw casserole in the fridge, and somebody got caught up in playing a video game, and it's a small consequence thing, but I felt like I was getting annoyed that this was happening a little too often. And what are you going to do about it? I mean, you can talk till you're blue in the face, but it doesn't really last. So I devised the trust fund. And how this works is anytime they let me down and I can prove it and they agreed to do whatever it was, like put the casserole in the oven, and they didn't, and there's not a good reason for it, they owe me 20 bucks. And in our family, this just works. This is something that they have just kind of accepted and bought into, and we don't argue about it. It might seem silly, but in my world, it has helped me move on. So I just wanted to share that little tip. And if you struggle with that, like I did, maybe that's something that would work in your family as well. We had some friends visiting from out of state, and the husband is my husband's very good friend, and he asked about the trust fund that he saw on the counter, and I explained how it worked. And then he says, "Oh crap." And he reaches into his pocket and he pulls out $28.67 and adds it to the jar. That actually left me with more questions than it answered. That was a little weird, but the trust fund has worked out great. Sometimes I go for months and months and it's a dry spell and there's nothing in there. And then there's weeks like this one where I have 160 bucks and I'm probably going to treat myself to something great. So I've cut up my onions, back to our recipe here, and I'm going to blanch the tomatoes. This looks like a bad spot here. I think everybody knows how to blanch tomatoes, but if you don't, I'll show you how I do it. These have been sitting in the fridge for a little over a week. They're not quite bad, but they're getting a little mushy. So I cut the tip off and then I score it down the side. And I've got water boiling on the stove. Score that down the side. And I've got 4 Roma style tomatoes. You can use any kind you have, whatever you've got in your fridge, in your garden, in your Homer bucket, on your deck. Any kind of tomato will work. I'm just trying to use up the things that have kind of a limited lifespan. So I've got my tomatoes all prepped and scored. I've also got a can of chickpeas that I am going to drain and rinse. I've got 4 cups of vegetable broth, and I use Better Than Bouillon vegetable seasoning. And then I've got a teaspoon. This is cumin. I've got a teaspoon of coriander. If you haven't cooked with coriander, you should. It has such a fun, bright flavor. It really wakes things up that you're not expecting it, but it's pleasant, especially if there's a tomato base. I've got some turmeric, and the turmeric I only used about 1/4 of a teaspoon. I didn't need very much. Cayenne pepper, I used 1/4 of a teaspoon. I'm probably gonna put a whole lot more in my bowl because I like it really warm, but my husband doesn't. And then I have some curry powder, which is probably just a blend of some of these things, but it's commercially available. I love the aroma of it. And it's like $1.98 at Walmart. It smells really good. And I put a teaspoon of that. Then I've got some olive oil, and this is not necessary, but because I have just a little extra time before I go to my sailing practice, I am going to take my spices, my onion, and a little bit of garlic, and I'm going to warm them in a pan with the olive oil. And that really brings out the flavor. And then I'll put everything in the crock pot to simmer and take off to do my activity. First, we'll do our tomatoes. I'm going to plop these in. I'm using a pasta fork because I don't have a slotted spoon, but it works just the same. So see, you don't have to be wealthy or have a lot of fancy equipment. And I'm going to put those tomatoes in there, and I'm just going to wait and watch for the skin to bubble up a little bit. And when the skin starts to bubble and peel back, then I'm going to take those off the burner and put them in an ice bath. This step probably isn't entirely necessary, but I don't like the skins in my curry because I think that it makes it a little lumpier than it needs to be, and I really like it to have a smooth and creamy sauce. I want to make sure that they all get their time in the boiling water. And you can see that it's starting to peel. So I'll go dump those in the sink and then run ice cold water over those. As you can see, these have been soaking in some cold water and the skin comes right off. So throw that in there. And it cools the tomatoes down as well. This one is a little thicker. This works pretty well, and this is the method that I use for any recipe that calls for diced tomatoes if I don't have a can of them. Of course, in the summertime, it's always best to use fresh if that's an option that you have. I've set my pan to medium heat, and I'm going to add some olive oil. I'm going to be pretty generous with this. If you're opposed to using fats and oils in your cooking, you don't have to do that. You can do this with water. I personally haven't tried it, but a friend of mine has. I'm going to add my onion. I'm going to add some minced garlic. I'm going to add some minced ginger paste. And then first I'm going to add my turmeric. I'm going to clean the bowl out with a spoon. And this is why we don't pour directly from the container over a hot skillet, is we don't want the moisture to gather in the container where we store our spices. Next, I'm going to add my coriander. And you can use ground or you can use the actual seeds. Then I'm going to put in the cumin. This is where it starts to smell like an Indian dish to me. I'm going to give this a little stir. Don't you love how the onions turn yellow? You can technically put all of these things directly in the crock pot. I don't, because this is called layering your flavor profile. And when you taste it, it will have a little different effect on you if you take the time to put your seasonings and your onions and your garlic in a skillet with some oil. It really brings out a better flavor. This is nearly done. I'm going to add my curry powder and my cayenne, just a little bit. Use a spoon to get all that out of there. Okay, I'm going to turn off the heat and we will head back over to the counter and put all of this in the crock pot. We got everything prepped on the stove that we wanted to do in advance. And again, you don't have to, if you don't have time, that's okay. You're still making a dinner for your family. And that's the most important thing. So you do what you can and it is good enough. I wanted to add that this is vegan, but yours doesn't have to be. If you feel like you want to add chicken or whatever you eat, put it in there. This is just what we like to have, and this is how our family does it. As far as sharing my trust fund information, I feel like being genuine is the most important trait that I can offer. I think that there are more than a few channels out there where you have ladies that have chosen homemaking and they are presenting a reality that isn't very real at all. There's no way that your house is clean all the time. There's no way that they agree with their husband all the time. There's no way that their children are good all the time. And we have real feelings, and it's perfectly healthy and natural to have those. And I want other people to know you don't have to be sweet and quiet all the time to be a good partner. You can have boundaries, and you can say, what you've done has hurt me. And one of the best ways to forgive is to find a way to resolve what it was that was hurting you. Because if it's just swept under the rug, you're going to carry that with you. That's not very effective. And then that becomes resentment, and that's what ends relationships. So the trust fund was kind of a joke as far as a way to handle this and make it a little lighthearted, and it works for us. So if that's something that could work in your family, give it a try. And if you have an idea for trying to make more peace in your personal family, let me know in the comments. I'm always willing to adopt new practices. I don't know what my kick with sweet potatoes has been lately, but I ordered, I think, a 5-pound bag in my grocery order. And now I'm trying to put them in everything. So you don't know where sweet potatoes might end up this week. If anyone has a birthday in my household, watch out. I haven't been known to do that before. Put vegetables in places that you wouldn't expect them, just to make a little healthier version. I probably don't need to slice these too much, but I will anyway. I love tomatoes. I cannot get enough. I can eat as many tomatoes as I can grow. And on top of the garden tomatoes that I grow and preserve, I still buy cans of them at the store, like so many cans. It's something I always have in my pantry. There's just no end to the things I can do with a tomato. I think I could do like a whole month's worth of recipes. Let's start with tomatoes. Do you have a favorite? Something that your family eats all the time? I know a friend of mine from the dog park loves to eat chicken. Whenever I say, what are you having for dinner? There's chicken. It's gonna involve chicken, I promise. I think we should eat what makes us happy. So this is my vegetable broth. Okay, there we go. And I'm gonna wipe my hands off now to add our onion and our spices. Okay, I will stir that up. Now, when I get back from sailing, that's going to be about 5 hours from now, and I am going to cook this on high for 5 hours. I'm going to add my coconut milk and I'm going to add some peas to this at the very last minute. You don't want to overcook the peas. So we've got about 5 hours to go do what we want to do, and then we'll come back and finish it. And this has had 5.5 hours. So look at this. This looks really good and it smells really good too. Now I want to make this a little creamier, so I am going to fish out some of the tomatoes and some of the sweet potatoes. And I'm going to put those into a blender. And we'll add that back into our pot. I'm going to add about 1.5 cups of frozen peas. And one last item is the coconut milk. We're going to add that. As I stir this, it's still not as thick as I wish it was. There are a couple ways we could go about thickening this up. And what I'm going to use is about 1 cup of potato flakes. You could also use cornstarch or flour, but I think that potato flakes will give it a better consistency without changing the taste a whole lot. Here's my finished chickpea and sweet potato curry. I'm serving mine with a cheddar bay biscuit tonight. I hope you make this, and I know you'll love it. Bon appetit!